introducing, good afternoon, good afternoon, I'm sorry. I'm introducing our introducer, but I'm just going to introduce our program today. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to our friends of the library. They sponsor this and many other programs. We're very grateful for them. I meant to grab some friends membership forms. If you're ever interested in becoming a friend of the library, you can do that anytime right up at the front desk. I'm also remiss, last week I did not introduce our committee and I wanted to do so. So we have Christina Frank is in the back here, Kathy Yulee and Richard Beatty, and they help make this program possible. So thank you to them. If you were here last week, you heard me talk about our theme for this month, which is national parks. Last week we heard about the Everglades. We learned a lot about alligators that I don't think we knew. And this week we're going to be hearing about Yellowstone. Next week is going to be the Grand Canyon. And the 25th is going to be Yosemite. And that is all to go along with our theme this year for Richmond Reads, which is, the book is called The Last Ranger by Peter Heller, which takes place in Yellowstone National Park. So your presentation is going to be particularly apt today. We will do the door prize drawing at the end, so if you haven't entered that, please do so. And Richard, take it away.
All right, so excellent series. I want to use the term railroad into being on this committee 15 years ago, and I'm still here. It is a great program. We've been doing it. How many? 40 now? Is it 40 years?
43?
43,
I think.
So anyway, I met Jeff for the first time as being on the Board of Trustees. I went to the annual gathering up in North Tonawanda. I sat at the same table, got to know him a little bit. I'll read the canned version of your bio, and then we'll get on with the show. Perfect. So, Jeff lives right here in Batavia for the last 44 years. I worked at Genesee Valley BOCES for 39 years and retired as a special education teacher, an avid bicyclist. Sorry, I'm almost an avid bicyclist, not a hiker at all. Jeff is also Special Olympics coach for alpine ski racing. Jeff lives wife for 44 years. Carol have 2 children and 4 grandchildren. Jeff serves as our Niagara trustee representing the city of Batavia. And with that, sir, it's all yours.
Perfect. Well, thanks for having me. This is the first time I've been in front of a group in about 6 years. I've been happily retired. If I tell you stop chewing gum or something, I just went back to old habits, but I will not do that. We'll talk a little about the book, and we'll go from there. Saving Yellowstone is by Megan Cade Nelson. The book has approximately 195 pages of text, 53 pages of notes, and 15 pages of bibliography. She definitely has done her due diligence with this. She is has her doctorate, and here's just a little bit about her. And I think what's important here too is she's a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize, won the Spur Award, and is now is working on the West Coast on her newest book. It's coming out, which I can't remember what it was. The Westerners' creation of America's most iconic region. So she's working on that. The book was really well done. For those people who are really interested in all that stuff, the details are amazing. And it's really about the creation of Yellowstone, what has happened, and that's what I'll try to do, is give you some background information and about the park. In case you happen to know where it is, here it is here. The original Yellowstone is this little square area here. It's about 1,760 square miles. Okay, has anybody been there? For this one? Sure. Okay, so you're ahead of me there. So I haven't been there, so I am the person who has it. Again, the current boundaries. Okay. So in the text, she talks a lot about the native peoples, indigenous tribes that were in the area, and the Easterners started to want to exploit the area. I'll use the word exploit, might be a little bit too strong, but this is what they're really looking at. And when the white settlers, when white explorers went there first, they wrote back to the people out back east saying, hey, you know, there's bubbling mud, there's steam coming out of the ground, you know, they have this huge lake. People just truly did not believe them, okay? Thought they were crazy. The book, for the most part, deals with, I'm just going to come over here, trying to find slides that help with this presentation. The book, for the most part, is dealing with the Dakota and what we call the Sioux, but basically there are three tribes: the Lakota, the Dakota, and the Nakota. So she does a really great job about presenting the history of these people in this area and how history has affected them for really the negative part through here. So to go back, a couple of things. Congress passes the Pacific Railway Act in 1862. You may say, I thought this is, you know, they wanted to settle the West for a variety of reasons. I thought this was pretty interesting. The railroads acquired 175 million acres of public land from that time. And you may say that maybe only just for railroads, not necessarily. The other part that this act was really pushing for, which again extinguishes rapidly as maybe the Indian titles to all lands. Again, some of these things are still in the courts, which we'll talk about in a little bit. This is an interesting point. I did not know this at all. This is how a lot of the railroads would finance their actual building, is they got so much land and they would sell it to the settlers. Okay, so the government was also not only selling land, but the railroad was also selling land to white settlers. Notice it's white settlers too. And of course, they went through here, the homelands of these native peoples. And this was the completion of the Union Pacific in 1869. What happens is that there is people who want to do a northern route through the United States at that time, or the territories here. So they want to go this way from out here and just have another route. A little interesting tidbit that was in the book where this railroad started in in Omaha, and they really wanted to start it originally a little bit further north, but the president at the time owned some land in Council Bluffs, and he really lobbied to make sure that the terminus, the eastern terminus, was in Omaha because he owned land there. That person was Abraham Lincoln. So people, politicians were also queuing up to make money as they are today. So, but another person in Philadelphia who really started the idea of having a railroad was a gentleman by the name of J. Cook. He was a banker, broker, financier. He sold bonds, war bonds during the Civil War, made a ton of money. He was a really great marketer. He employed agents, as you would do now as insurance agents represent the company. He did the exact same thing. Made a ton of money, and he really lobbied to really get this railroad going. His whole idea was to make money and to get tourists to go to. He heard about Yellowstone, and to get tourists to go there also. So he is really lobbying and doing other things to promote his point. So here's one of his bonds that he's selling. Not too bad, 7.3%. Okay, at the time, to get this railroad going. this is eventually where it does go. Just to give you some background. Okay. So we got to keep that guy back in our mind here. The second person that the book deals a lot with is Ferdinand Hayden. He's a geologist and explorer of the person who actually did one of the first explorations for Yellowstone, at Yellowstone. He was a leader of the 1871 Yellowstone expedition. So he heard a bunch of lectures about the Yellowstone area, and he said, I want to become famous as an explorer. I don't know if anybody ever heard of him, other than there is some places in Yellowstone named Hayden, but I want to be a famous explorer. And by trade, he was a geologist. Again, Jane Cook thought it'd be a great idea to get this railroad going, bring tourists out there, and of course make money selling land to farmers and so on and so forth. And the US government wanted to find out what the heck was out there. Again, looking at geology, mines for gold, silver, copper, what's out there. We want to know what we can do. So Ferdinand Hayden gets $40,000, lobbies the government, gets $40,000 for an expedition. And so who did he bring along with him? I probably want you to really take a look at what these people did here. You have it. We'll talk a little about, the book goes into detail about Schönborn, who was a chief topographer. Lots of stuff about William Jackson, who was a photographer, pretty famous. And it's interesting, Jackson and Thomas Moran, who is a very famous artist, they lived pretty long lives. They lived into the 20th century, I think, most of them. But you can see they have meteorologists, mineralogists, so on and so forth. They were able to get out there and bring all their equipment by railroad, by that Union Pacific Railroad. They sent back a lot of their stuff by the railroad also. So when you start seeing some of the materials they had, you know, they're not coming in from the Mississippi River and walking all that way. Yeah.
No Native Americans joined this expedition?
There was, this isn't the entire list. They said 32. Then I counted on one list, there was like 40 something. There were some Native Americans, I do not remember, I don't think so. I think there were some people of Spanish origin who were helping out, but I do not remember seeing anyone like that. Oh, I'm sorry, yes?
There was a couple back on the map. I saw the Pacific Ocean on the one side. I was wondering what those other lakes were.
Let's see. This one
Yeah.
would be Lake Superior.
Okay.
Yeah, it started like in Minnesota.
Okay.
So Moran and Jackson really worked together, and a lot of this is a lot of PR work to promote building of Yellowstone or saving of Yellowstone, promote the railroad. So you're always going back to that PR work behind what's really happening here. Though these people are really doing it for the science. So, over here. Not all the items, a couple of the items that they brought. So this was really a really scientific expedition. I had to look up a few of these. I'm sure you all know what they are. This planometer, it's like if you took a protractor and hung it on a wire to measure the angle of a hill. Okay. The barometers they use to determine the height of, again, no laser measures, so they use barometers to measure air pressure, high and low, and do whatever math they did to figure it all out. Mules, horses. He got horses from the U.S. government, from the Army. They came out, he had said, hey, you got to give me horses out at one of the forts out there, and, you know, okay, here you go. So it was, again, that's a detail in the book that she was able to really help out with. So the book, again, concentrates a lot on a few of the people here. So this guy was the chief topographer, Anton Schonborn. They had odometers, barometers. He also did a hydrological survey of the lake, actually measured the depth, the width, the height, the length of the lake. It was very, very detailed. And they talked about, they brought a part of a boat. They had called the boat the Annie, and it was all apart. And when they got there, they put it together so you can go out on the lake to do all his measurements. He was also an artist. Unfortunately, he died by suicide about 1871. Hayden was able to get all his notes. And an interesting tidbit, Hayden was not a topographer, so he said he had another gentleman who was on an earlier survey, named by Mr. Barlow, who lived in Chicago, and said, could you go through his notes and help me, get the topography right? Barlow said, yeah, send me a lot of this stuff. And before Hayden could send it, 1871, you know what happened in Chicago? And Barlow lost all his notes from previous expeditions. The whole thing went up in flames, and Hayden was like ecstatic that his notes were not there. So, but he's well known though as a artist. Again, Fort Bridger. And again, now we come on to William Henry Jackson. You like that little picture up at the top there, where he is? Again, look at the long line. A world-renowned photographer. Was born in Clinton, New York. Grew up in Troy and in Vermont. Was at the Battle of Gettysburg. He was only in service for a couple of months. But he, again, started with photography, and you can imagine, I'm going to read this because this is amazing when you think about it, and I'll show you some pictures. He carried 3 camera types: a stereographic camera for stereoscope cards. Remember, the cards, you have the 2 pictures on each side, you have that. So he had a camera for that. He had a whole plate camera, which is, the plates are glass, of course, 8 inches by 10 inches, and then he carried one as large as 18 by 22 inches. Okay, so sorry George Eastman wasn't around, did not invent. Here is William Henry Jackson. And of course you may be saying, where's all the photography equipment? Well, of course you hire an aide. And there he is. So you can see the size of the camera, one of the cameras here. So the Hayden expedition, this is in 1870, Red Buttes from Wyoming. And again, I said they took all the trains out material. Interesting little tidbit here. Why, I don't remember the guy's last name, but the cook had the best name in the whole book, Potato John. Gotta have your cook. Again, you can see the camera over here. I couldn't make out some of this stuff. The pictures were really not that great, but you can see that, how they're living. And the other gentleman that they talk a lot about the book is Thomas Moran. Again, very famous artist. And if you go back to, again, talk about that PR work, that why we're going to get this going, he was a linchpin in this whole expedition. Again, picture of him with the group around the lake. Quick sketch. Okay. Something about, and we'll talk about this picture. Let's go back for a second here. During the 1870s and 1880s, Moran's designs for wood-engraved illustrations appeared in major magazines and gift-oriented publications. He mastered multiple printing media, including wood engraving, etching, and lithography. But he's more well known for all his paintings. So, a very accomplished artist. His just wanted to make sure I got that point in. This is probably one of the most famous paintings here. And this is called Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. And you might want to say it went viral. It was really the tipping point to really get the money flowing and stuff. So he completed this like in 1871, and Jay Cook helped do an exhibition of the painting, and really was really pressured to get it done, show it. They did show it. It was picked up by the Speaker of the House in Washington. Well, they say picked up, but somehow Jay Cook coordinated this. Here, you have this. And they also tried to sell it, and it hung in, eventually the US government did buy it, and hung in the Senate chambers for many, many years. The US paid $10,000 for this. It's a huge painting. It is, let's see, 7 feet by 8.5. Okay, it's still in the Department of Museum of the Interior, the Museum of the Interior Department. So again, we go, so where's this PR work going? Again, one of my favorite names here from the book. So again, about the same time, we're getting to the point where we should put away land for public use. Again, this is a crazy idea. We're not going to sell it. We're going to try to save it. And it was just, again, a change of it's a paradigm shift for people. How are we going to do this? So he begins with this. Just to let you know, Jay Cook, the financier, paid him to do all this stuff. So there was money being, all the politicians, he was from Philadelphia, Cook originally from Philadelphia. So, and Kelly's been there was in Congress for a long time, as you can see. He was named Big Iron because he was big on tariffs of iron products coming from overseas. So, again, more pictures that Jackson took. You take a look at the camera here. This is a little bit later, in 1880. He's in New Mexico. If you notice, that's in the Pueblo area, New Mexico. But you can at least see the size of the camera he's working with. And again, no light meters, no timers, all that kind of stuff. You're doing this all by your art and your own sense. How long do I have to expose this? What do I do? What's the light? So I think it's pretty amazing here. So again, with some of the other pictures, Moran's pictures, Mosquito Trail, again, he does lots and lots of paintings that people see. And of course, this one too. The other part of the book that that she deals a lot with is, of course, the Native peoples, and most of it is concentrating on Sitting Bull. Okay? Lots of details about Sitting Bull, and he was a leader of this group, Papa Lakota. He was not chief of the whole Sioux Nation, which is a misnomer, and he was really a leader, not necessarily a chief. So there's a lot of things that she really clarified in the text about Sitting Bull. So, book deals with this. This was the part that was supposed to be retained for after the Treaty of Fort Laramie. Just to let you know that Sitting Bull's group did not sign this treaty. Okay? He was not interested. So you take a look at this. But what happens here is this. In 1874, sort of a guy I think you may know, George Custer, is going out in this area, and he's with a group of people who discover gold. Of course, once the gold gets discovered, they want that land. The Sioux refused to sell that, which were the Black Hills. They refused to sell. Custer and a whole bunch of people said, well, too bad, we're still going to take your land. So the beginning of these Indian wars, in the 1870s or 71 started in this area when these people are coming through after this treaty was signed. So what happens? Whites start coming into Lakota country for gold. They enter these lands, and then they cross the Lakota lands to get to the mining areas. Again, numerous battles with soldiers, and again, she goes into details about some of those. I thought it was an interesting comment. One of the indigenous people said this. Can't remember which one, but I quoted it from the book. Sounds right. Now, so that survey team that we talked about is now entering that area also. So you have the miners, you have the survey team coming, Lakotas, the Sioux are like, okay, what are we doing now? You know? These are some of the settlers of the Black Hills. Okay, what else is happening during this time? This is where people actually create Yellowstone Park. And again, paradigm shift. We're not dealing with homesteaders anymore. It is going to stay safe for a long time. We're not going to sell. We're going to keep this land. All right. First national park. Also, the first national park in the world. Next parks were Yosemite and Sequoia in 1890. So this was considered, it was a national park for a long, long time. So because of all this stuff that's going on, all these forces, what's happening with the natives, again, she goes into some of the detail. She again talks about some of these battles between the Sioux and the whites. It really goes in a lot of detail about the battle a little bit more, okay? And what happens to the, and again, it was very interesting. They said that Sitting Bull had a vision that he was going to beat, as he called, all the long knives. But you could not desecrate their bodies, you could not take anything from them, and we would be victorious in the long run. So he has this vision, but unfortunately, the young people of the tribe said, again, like you say with old people, oh, the heck with you. You don't know what you're talking about. They're the ones that really went out and started this little battle here. And after the battle, they did desecrate all the soldiers, took stuff from them. Sitting Bull, I guess, was not too happy about that. But this was probably, again, a big turning point through this area. So the Lakotas call it the Battle of Greasy Grass. All right, not Little Bighorn. Grant then escalated the war against the Indians. During this time was Reconstruction. Interesting little tidbit in the book. Soldiers in like South Carolina were prosecuting people who were trying to enforce the Jim Crow laws at this time. And Grant needed soldiers out west. And he goes, well, okay, we're going to be done with Reconstruction. You guys are going out there. Okay? So she does have some talk about the area of Reconstruction and the soldiers and what Grant had to do. Whoops, sorry about that. So Sitting Bull basically ran away, ran away, but went to Canada, lived around the border for about 4 years, back and forth, back and forth. Finally, he gave himself up in 1881, and he was a prisoner. And he was sent to a reservation. This is the reservation. Notice what's happening to the land, original land. It is being taken. So the Dawes Act, again, Nelson goes into detail about the Dawes Act and about Dawes, very anti-indigenous people. It's awful, some of the stuff that's written in there. Again, they wanted the native peoples to have land and just become farmers. If you know anything about the land out there, with 160 acres, you really can't grow much, right? You need huge amounts of land. This is the present day. And again, that Fort Laramie Treaty is still being talked about in the courts, according to Nelson's. Okay. So what else happens during this time? The railroad is finished. Let me just get my dates here. Okay, so it was 1883. Again, here is Grant driving the quote-unquote Golden Spike. So what happens to the rest of these people in this book? We hear about Sitting Bull in Buffalo Bill. You may have heard that, Sitting Bull did join the Wild West show. It was only for a year. He did it basically to get money to send back home for his group of people. He got $50 a week. He had a signing bonus, but only did it for 1 year. And the first time he joined the show in Buffalo, New York, right here. So you may remember at one time the Native peoples were doing in the 1890s, there was a movement, a spiritual movement called the Ghost Dance. If you guys are familiar, heard of that. But there was a Ghost Dance, and it was a revival movement, very religiously orientated, and a lot of the whites thought this was going to be another uprising of the Native peoples. Okay? So they thought Sitting Bull was really behind this whole thing. He truly was not. So the Indian agents and some other police, quote unquote, came to his house on the reservation, literally like one of those 6 o'clock in the morning things, pulled him out of bed, shots were fired, he was shot dead in 1890. So what happens in the aftermath? The railroad does get completed, and this is in 1900. J. Cook actually went bankrupt in the 1873 market crash, loses everything. But if you kept your 7.5%, 7.3% bonds, you did pretty darn well. You made out here. And so the railroads gets through. Indians lose land. Okay. Here's a little brochure in 1904 for the Union Pacific. Excuse me. Again, promoting going out there. These are the current reservations in northern United States. And where Yellowstone is. And this is current Yellowstone. Okay. So the text, again, I just gave you a quick overview of the book and stuff, but the text goes into much more detail about all these people and what they did. And if you're really into the research, she's done all the newspapers and diaries and those type of items. So, but that's it for me. So, you guys have questions or something? Yeah.
Earlier, like way earlier, you had the list of the items. I didn't know, like, what denotes a horse ambulance compared to just horses? Just like
I think the
quicker
horse, I believe it was the type of wagon.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I think it was a wagon. She goes in details about sometimes going to get pictures or measurements, people going down these huge steep inclines and almost not getting back. She's really, like I said, very, very interesting. If you like those little tiny bits of detail that I like about people. Yes?
Thomas Cole, Hudson River artist.
Moran was a Nard, yes, was a Hudson,
Moran,
yes,
okay.
yeah, Hudson River, yes, he was,
They were together.
yes. And again, if you do some research on him, unbelievable paintings,
Yeah.
just has a huge, huge number of paintings. Yes?
Did John Muir connect with the people?
No, there's no mention of John Muir at all.
So when he was doing Yosemite, which is the next part, so he just followed their pattern or set up his own pattern?
I truly do not know, I do not know that, because he was not mentioned in this book at all,
Okay, all right.
okay, that I saw. I just stole this quote. Yeah.
Sorry if I missed it, but how long was the expedition?
1871, and they started late 1870, they had to be finished with a report to Congress in 1872. So I think they did finish it within less than a year.
Did they encounter battles, illnesses, deaths?
Not that I remember. Battles, I think that she talked about a couple of times where they were surveying and the native peoples were a few miles away. So she was able to put some of those, they never crossed paths. And again, she was saying what happened, not in their own way, but never said what would happen, but for the reader would have been, what would have happened if they did.
Does she go in talking about the geology of the park as far as the volcanic nature?
Yeah, yes, she does go into details about that, about the rocks, about the geology, you know, why it was called Yellowstone and all those other kind of things. Yeah, so again, not like a super science, not like Scientific American magazine, but you're gonna, for the average person, okay, that's really nice. Anything
I
else?
think she'd speculate on the supervalve, the so-called supervalve.
But they talked about the geysers and she went into detail about why it's happening. And again, paragraph or so, just to give you the background so you don't have to, you know, go on Wikipedia, pull out your ninth grade science book, Earth Science, to find out what's going on.
Talk about the interaction between tourists of today and the park.
No. She really ends it with the creation of the park.
Okay.
The railroad is ended, Sitting Bull is dead, Jay Cook dies of syphilis, I believe. No, Hayden dies of syphilis. Cook makes all his money back. Cook, I guess, lived in off of Erie, Pennsylvania. He has his home is still there. It's called Gibraltar, and it's still there. He would summer there, then go back to Philadelphia. So, yeah. Okay.
Anything more for Jeff? Any other questions? Well, thank you.
Hey, thanks. Thank you.
If anyone did not enter the door prize drawing and would like to, you can do so now. Today's gift certificate is to Harrington's, so we're going to do that drawing. Did anybody else want to enter? So, thank you again for coming. I'm going to have Jeff pull our winner. Thank you. Joan. Joan, where are you? There she is. So, congratulations. Next week, as I mentioned, we're going to be hearing from Janice. She's going to be talking to us about the book, A Walk in the Park, the true story of a spectacular misadventure in the Grand Canyon. So we're going to be heading south in the United States from Yellowstone. And I'm also in the company, I've never been to Yellowstone, so I guess I should probably get out there. There's a lot of people that have been, so. But as I mentioned, the theme this month was chosen to go along with our Richmond Reads title, so if you want any information about that, there are brochures on the table over here. We also have our quarterly brochure for September, October, November for programs here at the library. And there's a copy of the book available over there if anybody would like to borrow it. And are you holding on to that one?
I have to check it out.
Okay.
Check it in.
So that one will also be
available.
possibly available unless somebody else has it on hold. Please take a cookie, have some more tea. I think that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much.
She goes through, of course they did. Yeah. All the stuff that he does, and he was, we were in shape, so. Hi, how are you? Thank you.
That was quite a night.
Yeah. There you go, Joan.